Welcome, my name is Christopher Peter. I am sure that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver did not plan for the 2025 basketball season to kick off with the arrest of one of the league's Hall of Famers and head coach, as well as a notable guard for gambling-related charges, one for allegedly playing in and rigging illegal high-stakes poker games, and the other for providing information to bettors to help manipulate payouts. It is not illegal to gamble in many places in the United States, where casinos may freely operate in or online services licensed in your state. Many of us have participated in it to some degree. Being a New Jersey native, it is common for us to every now and then travel to Atlantic City and enjoy time in a casino for entertainment. I am not much of a gambler and am perfectly fine setting an amount I am willing to spend, playing low-stakes games, or slots and calling it quits if I lose that amount or am up a bit. I will never go and withdraw more money, nor will I obsess over trying to win back losses. I go into the night with the mindset that this amount is what I am willing to spend on a given night out. Nothing that would harm my budget. That has never been a problem for me. But I understand that some people are unable to do that, either because of their personality or they may have some level of gambling addiction. Their mind is not able to establish reasonable limits. Therefore, many people lose a great deal of money, their livelihoods, and sometimes their freedom because of this vice. Gambling is a vice in our society. One of many. Not an illegal one, but one that can bear severe consequences to the people who participate in it without the ability to establish boundaries. Like the many vices we will talk about later, there is a need for moderation if you want to avoid regulation. Unfortunately, we are seeing the consequences when people go well beyond the boundaries of acceptable participation, to a point that I am not sure you can consider it gambling, but an alleged effort to manipulate multiple systems at the same time. To help shape our discussions, let us invite Jennifer to define the issue that we will try to address in this episode.
My name is Jennifer, and let us break down this topic for discussion. The practice of gambling has been legal for quite some time in the United States, and over the last decade plus has grown around the nation, as many places find it suitable for economic growth and increased revenues for tax receipts. So we went from gambling largely done in Las Vegas and Atlantic City to many other communities. Gambling has also exploded in the digital space, appealing to customers who prefer the comfort of staying at home and playing games normally played in the sometimes crowded casino halls. Gambling has become ingrained into our society and economy that it commonly advertised and normalized. Every major sports media company is affiliated with sports betting companies and sports odds in their content. Almost every sports podcast is backed by a sports betting website or casino. Even the most traditional sports news broadcasts incorporate betting odds in their shows. Bettors went from social degenerates to respected sports minds. The more popular betting became, the more products and services were created to pique bettors' interests. More things they could bet on. Bettors can place bets on games, team outcomes, player performances, and even political outcomes, as that may be the next concern for the future. But bettors can place a whole host of bets on many different aspects of sports. The problem comes for the sports leagues, whose interest in this space is protecting the integrity of the leagues, while attracting sponsorships as well. For decades, Las Vegas was seen as a city that may never have sports teams. Now they almost have a team from every league. The fear many had dissipated a bit over the years. Now, the National Basketball Association showed us that leagues cannot rest and must address challenges that evolve as the world innovates and changes the playing field to a more complex dynamic environment, that those in compliance are always a step behind. Leagues do not want to see their players joining the annals of history for players banned for life. Like Shoeless Joe Jackson, the recently passed Pete Rose, and others. Leagues have to protect the integrity of their sport, as fans want to make sure the games are won by the effort of the players on the field, not some bookie holding the player hostage. And they must do so in an environment where gambling companies have so much influence, to the point that some commentators will fabricate narratives of government conspiracies. Gambling is legal. No one should think that it should go back in the shadows. But we must set boundaries not only for the gamblers whose lives are commonly destroyed, but external industries and people who could be harmed by the externalities from this vice.
Gambling is a vice, but that does not mean it is evil in its entirety. Vices are generally seen as bad, but that is largely because of the road it can take for those who lack moderation. There are many vices in life that we have to deal with to protect our economic interests, our social interests, our personal well-being, and our future opportunities. There are many vices that we have to worry about. For instance, I can have one alcoholic drink and not want another one. Or I can go a considerable time without one and not experience any desire for a drink. I do not need a drink to relax, but I will have a social drink every now and then. I can go to a social event and not worry about having a drink. But some live for that feeling of what they think is being buzzed. We all know that one person who may have to be pulled out of a bar before something changes their life for the worse, or people that have faced consequences because of their inability to control their drinking or other chemical addictions. And some vices are not what one would consider bad. Personally, I would say my vice that I have to control is food. I have trouble saying no to a good burger, pizza, or something sweet. It is something that I have had to manage over the years to make sure that I do not overindulge. I can avoid gambling, drinking, but not a slice of cheesecake. Vices can be weird, and my vice has a downside if I do not control the urge and avoid bad habits. The problem with vices is that people lose balance in life. That vice can become more important than what is truly important in life. The vice can be more important than their careers, their families, their health, their friends, and their communities. Some will treat their vice like a Klondike bar and do anything for it. In a society that has been cultured to push back on personal responsibility in favor of societal projection, it is easy to indulge and give in to temptation. Look at advertising for gambling with the promises of guaranteed winning. Food is advertised as healthy if they add lettuce and tomatoes, things that can help you drop the little guard that some with addictive personalities have to prevent them from giving in. Now, the National Basketball Association is the modern face of sports gambling. The rest of the leagues will send memos and try to enhance their policies to avoid standing next to them in the spotlight. In reality, it is not something they can completely control. Their pro-player default position may need to shift towards what is the right thing for the league and player, but they have addressed issues they became aware of. I think it is completely idiotic to try to deflect and distract with the narrative that this is some form of political revenge. This is where critical thinking comes in. This was an investigation over years. Trump has only been in office for less than 1 year. So it is quite idiotic to make that fabrication on what is supposed to be a prominent network and show. But the host is going through some things following his offending of a prominent generational talent. Sports leagues have a great deal to lose if fans, sponsors, and networks believe that the outcomes are being fixed, especially by those elements in society that harm our communities and take life. Now, the WWE has shown sports entertainment with predetermined outcomes can be effective, but sports fans want their teams to win fair and square, without controversy or ref interference. I think there has to be zero tolerance of gambling. I think the lifetime ban has to be the norm for any gambling on games they were involved in, providing any information to anyone outside of the league's ecosystem, and betting on the league they play in. There is no question. You cannot have players embracing market manipulation, fraud, or corruption. There were many people sympathetic to Pete Rose, and truthfully, I was one. He is the all-time leading hitter in the major leagues, but he harmed the integrity of the beautiful sport of baseball, and cast a big shadow on the league for decades, then only came clean when he profited from it. While I still think he is an all-time great, there was a need to send that message and ban him for life. Even though I would still add him to the Hall of Fame posthumously may not be a bad thing. There is no benefit from it at this point, but I could see and acknowledge the argument against it. Because I think people would be deterred if they knew that this violation of the league's trust would never be lifted during the rest of their natural life. That is a big penalty, especially amongst people who are so obsessed with their legacies and impact on the game that they love. Players would know that some mistakes you cannot come back from. From an economic perspective, I think the sports betting market is a legitimate one and supported it when it came into New Jersey. But I do think it needs to self-regulate a bit more and maybe review the need for prop bets and whether those provide too much of an opportunity for corruption. Maybe consider not making the prop bets available until the game starts so participants are less likely to be influenced. I am pro-business like I think people should be, but I do think that companies should be aware of what externalities their companies may cause and address them. If they do not moderate, then they will force governments to regulate, and government regulation is usually not as effective as constructive moderation. From a high level, societal bird's-eye view, people need more resources to deal with vices of all kinds. I have said in the past that there is not enough access to mental health. Our insurance plans cover a lot of things, but mental health professionals have been left out. As a result, the cost of mental health is usually out of pocket or providers enjoy high rates without the anchor of insurance. People sometimes are blinded by their vices and cannot see clearly. We may not believe them, but there are things in everyone's life that they enjoy and may have trouble saying no to at the expense of other things. Maybe they have not yet, but it could be something that they could see themselves being swayed. And that is what we all have to control. And some people may need help where others can do it themselves. Now, I do not accept the excuse of gambling addiction in the case of those arrested and indicted because it goes beyond gambling. They sought to influence the outcome, which is not really gambling. Many people feel their skills are good enough to impact how others play, but they do not remove the chance aspect. These individuals are accused of doing just that. That makes the actions fraud and corruption, not gambling. Therefore, gambling addiction is not a suitable excuse.
As long as people are human beings, there will always be some who give into vices. The more they do, the greater chances that people who lose control will bring real-life consequences to not only themselves, but their families, their colleagues, partners, and communities. That is the reality of what happens when people lose control. I think it is important to not worry about the stigma as much as being aware and not wanting to be associated with the negative. So we need to take steps to manage our vices of all kinds. I agree that society can better help people with managing vices that have spiraled out of their personal control. But like anything in life, it comes down to the choice of the person. People cannot want others to be in control, better or more successful than they do. At some point, the person has to make the decision to take the steps needed. These vices can seem harmless, but many can be catastrophic in moments. Alcoholics who do not refrain from driving can harm others. People with food addictions can harm themselves and cause trauma to those who they leave behind. And gambling addicts can face the consequences of owing money to people who do not have reasonable credit resolution processes that favor their well-being. Moderation is important. And people who want to deny that learn the hard way. Thank you for experiencing this episode of the Christopher Peter podcast, part of the Christopher Peter Review. Your viewership is appreciated and valued. Please follow the Christopher Peter Review on social media and continue to visit www.crcreview.com for new episodes of the Christopher Peter podcast and the CRC. Thank you once again. Until next time.